know how do we set our speech apart? How do we keep our speeches in the minds of people? How do we keep our presentation in the minds of people? And it's a very, very important thing to do. You need to keep your presentation in the minds of those you've spoken to. Have you ever attended a boring conference where people, like for instance, so Valerie introduces me, gives that long introduction, and I come and stand here, or just like you heard, my name is Theophilus Sosi. I am former president of the UC Debate Society. I am the founder of the Debate Society. I'm currently the president of the Regional News. I am the former SRC. Like, people will be thinking, we've heard that already. We clap for you, we give you a standing ovation. Why are you, belaboring us with that kind of information again? You need, for you to start your speech well, or for you to set your speech apart, you need to start strong. And it was something I noticed a lot with the manifestos that people were delivering. And I want to acknowledge aspirants in this room, and you probably noticed, let me give you an example. A team would come and stand there, and they would say, Mr. Chairman, panel, ladies and gentlemen, students gathered, my name is Theophilus Sosi, 300, this and that, and the lady standing beside me is so and so, and together we are Team Abuchi. Team Abuchi is seeking your endorsement as SRC president, and this is what we want to say to convince you. You know that the University of Cape Coast has got issues with security, and as a team we want to build an underground passage so that when the thief is attacking you, you can just enter. First thing, you'll be coming to our roots campaign. We know you are Team Abuchi. We know your name. If we're going to vote for you, we want to know you. So we'll make all of that investigation. When you start speaking like that in public, people begin to feel like you don't really have anything to say. Another thing is, with the rise of social media and with the rise of smartphones, people are usually engrossed with their smartphones. So chances are, before you speak at the conference, there's that lady in the corner who's on Facebook or Twitter or Snap. The way to set your speech apart is first to get her off her phone. But how do you get her off her phone? We are giving her information on stuff she's already heard. So then, if I'm on my phone Facebooking, I'm seeing interesting stuff on Facebook, and you begin to tell me stuff I've already heard, I'll just close my mind and believe this is going to be a boring speech, like the ones we've already heard. So first thing, the first question, how do you start your speech right? How are you going to start your speech strong? So the first thing you need to know about an introduction of your speech is that there are various components of that introduction. There's first what I call an attention grabber. The attention grabber is that statement that is going to change someone's mind, that is going to move that girl away from the phone. It's going to take her attention and her interest from her phone into what you're going to talk about. Someone gave a very, very good example about the reason people are not so interested in the subject of climate change. If we organize a conference on climate change, I can assure you the only way to get people here will be to enter a class and make it mandatory for them and tell them, if you don't attend that conference, we're going to subtract so and so from your GPA. The reason being that most of the time the people who talk about such technical subjects are people who do not really take an interest in the importance of communicating so well. And so I saw that example on YouTube about how people talk about climate change. They'll probably say, good morning to all of you, my name is Professor Theophilus Sosi from the University of Cape Coast, Department of Energy and Renewable Resources. The subject of climate change is very, very important to me. The United States, we are having challenges with climate change and blah, blah, blah. You can't really hear what they're saying. You can't really hear any challenging statistic. You can't really hear anything that is compelling you to focus on the speech. So chances, and I've seen it several times, auditorium 900, you have people who are just seated there, just chatting with their friends, not interested in the subject, because the introduction of the subject did not really boost up any interest in them. And it is a very big problem. So first thing you need to know about introduction, you need to have an attention grabber, you need to grab attention. The next, you need to know that there's a certain important part of the introduction, which I want to call the introduction itself, or the body of the introduction. And then the third part is what I call the link to a topic. Why is your introduction important? Why is that beautiful introduction you have given us very important? And how does it link up to the body of what you want to talk to us about? So let's get deeper into your attention grabber. So like I mentioned, your attention grabber is that component of the speech that will boost attention and will get people interested in the speech you're about to deliver. And there are various ways of giving you an attention grabber. Some can do it by form of a story. I began my first presentation by telling you about a story, about a very uncomfortable experience of meeting someone, or your ex from 2011, who has found out you're speaking at a public speaking program and is not too convinced about your ability to speak in public. Stories are very compelling. Stories are very compelling because they sometimes connect with people. You may tell a story and people may feel, well, this thing probably happened to me. And it becomes very easy to remember it. And so people can connect to what you're talking about. It's an easy way of setting out the presentation because people would easily connect with what you've got to say. And Obama does it a lot of times. He uses a lot of stories in his presentations. And to some extent, I've also adopted it to use stories to introduce what you've got to say because people can easily relate to stories. Why then? Where people gathering around fire to listen to a nasty story. Stories are a very big part of our lives and our culture, and so it helps people to settle into what you've got to say. I'll give another example. I had the opportunity to speak about welfare on this campus at the main auditorium, and you'd realize that the main auditorium is quite a large place. You have people coming in from all walks of life. Some wanting to hear about welfare on campus in a very intellectual manner. Some also wanting to hear about welfare on campus in a very relatable manner. So I began my speech by telling a story about a blind student who fell into the gutter. Now, I don't think that there's anything that encapsulates the feelings we have towards welfare on campus than the indication of people who to some extent are unable to walk around on their own, falling into gutters. It challenges the welfare of our university. So if you tell a story of the sort, people begin to get interested in what you are talking about. And while you're telling the story, the mystery of how the story unfolds also boosts the interest. Because they introduce you. Let's invite Theophilus Sosi to come and talk about welfare on campus. And suddenly he's telling a story. What is he talking about? It would get you off your smartphone to listen to what I've got to say. But let's invite Theophilus Sosi to tell us about welfare. And then you come, hello, my name is Theophilus Sosi. I'm here to tell you about welfare. You're likely to be like, we know that already. So try and boost interest. You can tell a story. Another thing you can do is you can give a quote. So you're supposed to talk about welfare, and you remember this quote by a security expert. In my work as a broadcast journalist, I've had the opportunity to interview people, and I spoke to a security expert who said, our university is one of the most dangerous and insecure places in the world. That's a very, very intriguing statement. It's a very intriguing quote. So if you begin your statement by saying, Thomas Kwame Nimo said in 2016 that the University of Cape Coast is one of the most insecure and dangerous places in the world, people who have not heard it will be like, wow. And what that is also going to do for you is that it is going to enable them to start thinking. Because when you tell me something that I already know, I won't think about it. if you come in and tell me your name, which I already know, I won't think about it. If you tell me what you're going to talk about, which I already know, I won't think about it. But if you tell me something I don't know, a quote I have not heard before, and tell me this person said this and that about this place, I'll begin to think about it. The first question I ask myself is it true? Even if it's true, what are the examples? So people begin to think about it, and while they think about what you're going to talk about, even though you've not yet spoken about it, they begin to connect with what you're talking about. So then, you begin by talking about that quote, they think about it, they ask themselves, is this even true? If they find it to be true, they begin to ask themselves, where or what substantiates this quote? They'll begin to imagine the cattle they saw around, that animal that nearly pushed them to the side of the road. They'll begin to think about the motorists that use the pavements at Valco and how dangerous it is for people. And then while they begin to imagine those things, they'll begin to look up to you for more information because they already have a certain mysterious impression of what you've got to talk about. So the first thing I talked about was a story, or what technically is known as the anecdote, and then the next one is the quote, which you can also use. You can also use a question. For instance, you are here to talk about public speaking, how to overcome your fear of public speaking. You can begin by asking a question. Your question could be, how many of you will take the chance to speak to 25 million people at a go? Then people will begin to remember how much they are afraid of public speaking and how they will always run away from an opportunity like that. But the moment they know that in your speech, your responsibility is to talk about how they can overcome their public speaking fear, once they have a question that reminds them of that fear, they are very likely to listen to you. All that I'm talking about is how you can start strong and how you can start right. How you can start in a manner that people will not continue fiddling with their phones. And I'm very glad nobody's fiddling with their phones right now. Most of you have it on your table. But I see people with their hands beneath the desk. I don't really know what they're doing. But importantly, you need to know that it's important for you to start right and start strong, because that's what is going to build the momentum of your speech. So you need to have a story or an anecdote. You need to have a quote. You also need to ask a question. So your question could be, well, how many of you are afraid of public speaking? Or how many of you, or how would you feel if you were thrown into a cage of lions? You could also ask this question, which you can also note down. What if? It gets a lot of people thinking. What if? What if you were in Harvard? People are beginning to think about Harvard now. What if you left this room and your boyfriend had a note on your bed, breaking up with you? What if? Someone thinking. What if? The what if questions get you to think a lot, because they challenge you to think about things you may have probably missed out whilst you're thinking about normal things. Another thing that also probe your imagination is the imagined statements. So for instance, the speaker begins by saying, imagine the University of Cape Coast looking like Harvard in just 2 days. Probably he's an architect, he's a building technology expert, and he's supposed to talk about how we can transform our university. So he begins by saying, imagine we can transform our university in 2 days into a place like Harvard. You begin to think and imagine, and you easily would connect with what he's got to say. So the imagined statements also help. So far I've talked about your story, your quotation, your question, and the imagine. You can also begin with a statistic, which is very thought-provoking. And this one I saw on the internet got me really thinking. For instance, I'm a speaker at a malaria conference, and I begin my speech by saying, good afternoon. I've got just 5 minutes to deliver my speech, and I can assure you, by the time I'll be done with my speech, 50 children in Ghana would have been dead with malaria or from malaria. It's a very challenging statistic. It gets you to think. The import of the whole thing is, in 5 minutes, 50 children in Ghana die from malaria. It is not, a true statistic. I am just quoting something for an example's sake. But then, once you give us that kind of quoting, that challenging statistic, or you quote that kind of statistics, it gets people to really think about what you have to talk about. So, for instance, on the fear of public speaking, if you get some statistics about people who fear public speaking, it gets people to sort of appreciate the importance of knowing exactly what public speaking is and knowing exactly the challenges that it poses to people. So, for instance, if the statistics are that 85 people are afraid of public speaking, the moment you stand in front of us to say, did you know that 85 people suffer from the fear of public speaking? If the person does not know, he would want to think about it. The next question he would ask himself is, am I part of that 85%? And if indeed they are part of that 85%, he would want to listen to you. The importance of your introduction is so important. The importance of introduction is so important, yes, that you need to understand that we need to spend time on getting that introduction right. Because people know the technicality and people know the importance of the body of your statement to the point that you need to keep the body of your speech very simple. And so not so much premium is placed on that apart from the component of content. But then it is the introduction that is going to determine if people are going to listen to you or not. We're still on the point of the attention grabber. Another attention grabber is silence. But it's quite, let me say, difficult a technique to use. The thinking and the impression and the belief is that the moment a speaker is given the opportunity to speak, they should speak. They should speak immediately. So then, if you are given the opportunity to speak in front of the class, the moment you are introduced, you do the ordinary thing. Let's have Theophilus Sosi deliver a speech on how to prevent HIV and AIDS. The moment he mounts the podium, he picks up the microphone. Well, my name is Theophilus Sosi. I'm here to talk to you about how to prevent HIV and AIDS. Boring. But then if the speaker takes their time, gets to the podium, and the speaker is silent for a minute, even if you are on your phone, you'd want to stop and know what is happening. Because you don't expect that from speakers. Note, we are talking about the things you can do that will catch the attention of the people who are listening to you. So anytime you are going to deliver a speech, just imagine people seated in the auditorium, playing with their phones, having fun with their phones, because most of the time we are chatting with a loved one on our phones. And imagine what you can do to catch their attention. Silence is a very brilliant way to catch people's attention because it is very unexpected. And the very unexpected things really catch our attention. The reason why we love surprises, because silence will get you very surprised. Another thing which I usually run away from, but you can always keep in your pocket, is humor. You can crack a joke, and a joke will get people to laugh. But the fear is, what if they don't laugh? As for jokes and humor, they are between yourself and your God and your audience. Because if your audience don't laugh at your joke, you have a big problem. It has a tendency to mess you up from the beginning to end because you cracked the joke and people didn't laugh. But then, while you think about cracking a joke, let me just give you some tips, even though I do not enjoy cracking jokes. You should first try and understand where you're delivering the speech. Understand the people you're delivering the speech to, because there are some jokes that are very offensive. Like for instance, you are speaking to a group of black people and you want to use the N-word on them. It will take offense. If you're black, you use the N-word on them, they're cool. So you need to know where you're speaking, you need to know who you're speaking to, and you need to know who you are. There are some jokes that are jokes, but they are quite childish. People may not laugh at them because they know they know you're supposed to be higher and bigger than that. You're cracking a very childish joke. People will not be too pleased about that. The next one is about the introduction itself. So while you have got our attention, you can't still, or you can't just remain on that level. You can't just remain on the level of the imagine, or what if, or the joke. You are supposed to talk about how to prevent HIV and AIDS. You can't be cracking jokes the whole time. It's serious. You can't be giving statistics the whole time. It's boring. Even though a powerful statistic will get our attention in the first 5 seconds, it is boring if your whole speech is about statistics. You need to move on to the real introduction. Now, your real introduction will give your audience, your listeners, the impression of what your speech is about. So this is where you identify or you demonstrate to the audience the purpose of your speech. So, after telling you that after I'm done with my speech, or for instance, after that introduction, good evening, my name is Theophilus Sosi, I have 5 minutes to speak, and after my 5th minute, 50 children in Africa would have been dead of malaria, or from malaria. Now people are now getting ready to listen to you. You must first move on to why exactly you are speaking to us. So you're speaking to us because you want to teach us how to prevent malaria, or how we will not die from malaria. And then the next one, which is also a very, very important component, is to establish credibility. And this is one thing that people miss a lot from their introductions. From your first minutes and your first seconds in your speech, you must make sure you establish credibility. But how do you establish credibility? You must understand that the concept of credibility is in 3 factors. The first factor of credibility is competence. So if a speaker is speaking to you, you want to have that feeling of competence. You want to feel that this person speaking to you is competent, because you do not want to listen to somebody who does not have any expert knowledge on what they are talking about. So if I was running for SRCPRO, I would want to establish competence, or the feeling of competence, by making a small, I would not want to make it direct, but making a small reference to my activity in the debate society. So I'll probably tell a story. I'm giving you some. I'll tell a story and say, I got into this university in 2013, and while in this university I had the opportunity to start a debate society. Now in that debate society, I made a lot of friends, and I got the opportunity to communicate to people. As a student of this university, I've realized the importance of communicating to people, and that's why I'm running for SRCPR. In that small story, I made you know that I founded a debate society. It gives you that impression, well, we can trust this guy. So first, the guy founded a debate society. He's a good organizer. Second, he founded a debate society. He's a good communicator. And third, he founded a debate society. He's an initiator. So in all of this, you've established some form of credibility in what you're about to say. You did it in a very simple way, but then the people you are speaking to will not realize and be able to compartmentalize what you said, that he did this and did that and did that. But then after you have spoken and while you speak, they have this belief in what you are saying, and they just don't know why. But another person will come and speak. They will introduce him as the president of the Communication Students Association. He would have the opportunity to stand in front of people to speak, but still will not be able to get that feeling of competence from them, because he may not have established that competence or that feeling of competence in his first minute. So you need to find a way, you need to always keep it in mind that in your introduction, it's important for you to establish credibility. One factor of credibility is competence. The second factor of credibility is trustworthiness. You need to feel, your audience need to feel like they can trust you. So you have a feeling of trustworthiness for me because you know I've been there before. I'm not going to give you bad information because I've had a feeling of standing in front of people and having my knees shake. So it sort of gives you that feeling that, hey, you can trust this guy. And another thing, there are a lot of things that you can do during communication. Sometimes the way you present yourself at that conference or that presentation also gives some information and impression about who you are. It's part of the reasons why people use costumes, because the costume you use would communicate that you know what you're talking about. So if you are coming to dance, it will not make too much sense to be in a tuxedo. And if you are coming to speak at a conference, a major conference, it will not make too much sense for you to be in a dancing attire. Well, of course, unless you are supposed to speak on a topic concerning dancing. Wearing that costume will give you that credibility you need. So I've spoken about competence, trustworthiness. The third factor is caring or goodwill. Have you ever had the feeling of speaking to somebody you knew did not care about you? The feeling of speaking to somebody you know is selfish. And yet the person is trying to convince you to take a step. You know he doesn't care about you. You know he's a selfish person. You know you don't know him from nowhere. He's a stranger to you. He doesn't care about you. Chances are your brain will naturally shut down. It will not be something that you do on your own. Your brain will naturally shut down because you don't believe in what the person is saying. You don't believe that person cares about you. But these are three things that you need to do while you're trying to establish credibility. The first is establish competence. The second is establish trustworthiness. The third is to establish that feeling of caring or goodwill. So this is also a very big important factor of how you can make sure that your introduction is good. The third aspect of your introduction is linking to the topic. Give us the reasons why that introduction, that attention grabber, all the antics you have made to establish credibility are very important and link up to the topic. So let me try and give an example. I am supposed to talk about HIV, or yes, so HIV and AIDS. So my question is, and I won't speak on Valentine's Day. So did you know that by the time I'll be done speaking on a Valentine's Day like this, over 2,000 people would have contracted HIV and AIDS? Well, a few years ago, on Valentine's Day, I was fooled by the thought of love, and I was one of the 2,000 people who got infected by HIV and AIDS. But the reason I'm here today is to speak about how we can prevent HIV and AIDS in our modern dispensation, or how we can manage it, even though the phenomenon still exists. And by the time I'll be done with my speech, we would understand how HIV is contracted in the first place and how we can prevent it. If you're done with an introduction like this, people would have an impression of what you want to talk about. You would have grabbed their attention because, yes, indeed, on a Val's Day, people are doing their own stuff. And you want people to know and understand why exactly they should be listening to you on a subject of the sort. So that's it with the introduction. I want to wrap up